You ever notice how the loudest voice in your life isn't the one out there? It's the one in here. Not the critics on the internet. Not the people who doubted you at work. Not the ones who said, "You don't have what it takes." No, the voice that sits on your shoulder speaks in the quiet hours and calls itself your truth. That voice is your inner critic. But here's the thing, that voice didn't come from you. It was trained into you. And anything that's trained can be retrained. Tonight, we talk about rewiring your inner critic before it wires you into a life you never wanted. You weren't born doubting yourself. No child enters this world questioning their own worth. You ever watch a toddler learn to walk? They don't overthink the process. They don't wake up in the morning wondering if today is the day they'll disappoint somebody. They don't hesitate and say, maybe I shouldn't try, maybe I'm not ready. No, they just move. They fall on the carpet, on the tile, on the grass. They wobble, they cry for a moment, but even in those tears, there's no shame. There's no self-judgment. They get up almost with a kind of certainty because getting up is their nature. Not once do they consult a panel of doubts and fears whispering in their ear. That committee, that council of hesitation, that arrives later in life. So the question becomes who invited that voice in? Because you didn't. It came from experiences that shaped you long before you understood how deeply they were carving into your identity. Maybe it was a teacher who said, "Not good enough." And those 3 words settled in your chest like concrete. Maybe it was a parent who loved you, but loved you through fear, always reminding you of what could go wrong instead of what could go right. Maybe it was the world around you, a world that prefers you small, safe, predictable, easy to manage. You hear these messages long enough, you start memorizing them until they don't sound like someone else's opinion anymore. They sound like your own voice. Psychologists have names for this: internalized bias, limiting beliefs, fear scripts. Fancy terms for the moment somebody else's doubt became your personal truth. And the tragic part is you don't even remember when it happened. Negative words have a way of sneaking into your bloodstream while you're busy trying to survive. There's a study, Stanford 2021, that found people replay negative messages about themselves 4 times more often than positive ones. Think about that, 4 times more. Not because the negative is more accurate, not because the negative holds more wisdom, but simply because the negative is what you're used to. It's familiar. And familiarity feels safe, even when it's destroying you from the inside. That inner critic, people talk about it like it's some kind of moral compass, like its job is to guide you, protect you, keep you in line. No, that voice is not your compass. It does not lead you north. It does not pull you toward your purpose. It's an echo, a replay of old tapes, old wounds, old moments that never got healed. And an echo only carries the sound of the past, never the direction of your future. You do not have to live by that voice. You do not have to let it narrate your days or dictate your potential. You may hear it, yes, because old echoes take time to fade. But recognizing that the voice is not you, that is the first step to taking your life back. It's the moment you stop believing the noise and start listening to something deeper, something truer, something that was there long before the world taught you to doubt. You ever sit in a theater watching a story unfold, and you suddenly realize the whole time the narrator has been leading the character in the wrong direction, misleading them, shaping their choices, painting a picture that was never really true. And when that character finally wakes up to it, finally sees the manipulation, they stop, breathe, and say, "Hold on, that ain't my story." That moment right there, that awakening, that's the job you're being called to do today. To look that voice in your head dead in the eye and say, "I hear you, but you don't get to tell my story anymore." See, the inner critic wants you to believe it's a judge. Stern, objective, wise. But that's the lie. The inner critic is not a judge, it's a writer. It scribbles lines into your mind, scenes into your days, whole chapters into your life. And the wild part, it writes without asking your permission. It whispers scripts like, "You're too old, too late, too broken, too behind, too busy, too tired, too far gone." Lines designed to keep you small, to keep your feet planted where your fear feels comfortable, but where your purpose slowly suffocates. But hear me clearly, the pen does not belong to that voice. It belongs to you. And the moment you realize that, the moment you reach out, snatch that pen back, and start writing your own lines, that's the moment everything begins to shift. Because a story doesn't change by accident. It changes when the author stands up and says, "No more, I'm rewriting this." I remember meeting a woman backstage once. She looked calm, confident, someone you'd assume had always carried herself that way. But she told me a story that stopped me. She said, "People told me I wasn't smart enough for college, and I believed them, so I didn't go." Imagine that one sentence from someone else shaping decades of her life. That's the power of a script you never chose to believe. But then she said something else, something powerful. One day she heard a different voice. Not louder, but truer. A voice that said, "Try." A voice that didn't scream, didn't demand, just whispered possibility. And she listened. She enrolled in community college at 42, graduated at 46, earned her master's at 48. Today, she stands in front of classrooms filled with young people who carry the same wounds she once carried. And she tells them, "You are more capable than you've been taught to believe." She didn't wait for perfect timing. She didn't wait for permission. She didn't wait for the critic to approve. She rewrote the script herself. And the moment she did, her entire life, her confidence, her direction, her purpose shifted into alignment. You may think your story is already set. You may think your best chapters are behind you. But that's because you've been letting the wrong narrator speak over your life. The truth is simple. As long as you're breathing, the ink is still wet, the page is still open, and the story is still yours to write. You know, people spend their whole lives searching for the secret that separates the ones who rise from the ones who stay stuck. They think it's talent, some rare gift dropped into a lucky few. They think it's intelligence, a high score on a test someone else designed. They think it's luck, being in the right place at the right time with the right connections. But that's not it. The real difference, the quiet difference, the one nobody teaches you in school, is dialogue. The conversation you have with yourself when nobody's watching. The private battle that happens in your mind long before the public sees a victory or a failure. The people who rise aren't the ones who never hear doubt. They're the ones who answer it. They challenge it. They talk back. They don't take every thought as truth. They don't let every fear sit in the front seat of their life. They question the voice that questions them. And that's where the shift begins. Your inner critic will tell you, "You're not ready." It always starts there. That voice loves to pretend it's protecting you from embarrassment, from risk, from disappointment. But readiness has never been a requirement for greatness. Nobody started ready. People started scared, unsure, underqualified, inexperienced. They walked into new chapters with their knees shaking, but their hearts open. So when that voice whispers, "You're not ready," you answer it with the truth. Neither was anyone else when they started. Then the critic moves to its next trick. What if you fail? It says it like failure is the end of the world, like failing once turns your name into a warning label. But failure isn't final. Failure is information, it's redirection, refinement. The real danger isn't failure, it's regret. Failure will bruise your ego for a moment, but regret will bruise your soul for a lifetime. So when that voice asks, "What if you fail?" you answer, "Failure is a lesson. Regret is a prison." And I refuse to live locked up, but the critic saves its sharpest line for last. Who do you think you are? That question is designed to shrink you, to make you feel unworthy of ambition, unworthy of progress, unworthy of more. It tries to convince you that you're asking for too much, dreaming too big, stepping out too far. When you hear that question, stand tall on the inside and say, "I am becoming who I was meant to be." Because the journey isn't about having it all figured out. It's about growing into the version of yourself that's been waiting beneath the doubt. Rewiring doesn't mean the voice disappears. It won't. Those old echoes hang around. But rewiring means the voice loses its authority. It means it stops grabbing the steering wheel every time you try something new. It means doubt becomes background noise instead of a command. And when you learn to talk back, you take your power back, you reclaim your direction. You step into the driver's seat of your own life once and for all. People talk about confidence like it's some kind of magic dust sprinkled on a chosen few, while the rest of us just hope to catch a little falling glitter on the way by. They walk around saying, "Some people just have it," as if confidence is inherited or assigned or handed out at birth. But that's not how it works. Confidence isn't magic. Confidence is construction. It's built the same way you build muscle. through repetition, through resistance, through showing up even when you don't feel strong, especially when you don't feel strong. Think about going to the gym. You don't walk in on day one, lift the heaviest weight in the room, and walk out looking like the cover of a fitness magazine. You start small, light weights, short rounds. You build a habit long before you build strength. And even when the weight doesn't change, you do. Slowly, quietly, consistently. That's exactly how confidence grows, under pressure, under doubt, under the tiny challenges you face every single day. There was a study in the Harvard Business Review that found people who celebrated tiny victories, micro wins, they called them, were not only 30% more productive, they were more resilient when things got tough. Why? Because every small win becomes evidence. Proof, a message sent back to your brain that says, I can do this, I completed something, I moved forward. You may not think that making your bed in the morning matters, but to your mind, it signals a beginning, a step, a small claim on order and intention, and that's where the power is, starting small. You don't need to transform your life in one massive, dramatic gesture. Start with the simplest things. Make the bed. Send the email you've been avoiding. Take that 10-minute walk even if your day is overflowing. Read one page of the book that's been sitting on your nightstand for months. Practice your craft for just 5 minutes, not to be perfect, but to be present. These little wins stack. They compound. They start to form a rhythm inside you, a rhythm your inner critic can't interrupt. Every small success tells that voice, I am capable. And once you start believing that, even in tiny doses, something begins to shift. Capability grows into confidence. Not overnight, but inevitably. And once confidence begins to take shape, it creates momentum. You start moving differently, thinking differently, showing up differently. You begin trusting yourself, not because someone else told you to, but because you've built the evidence brick by brick. And when that momentum picks up, it becomes something deeper: identity. You no longer feel like you're pretending. You no longer feel like you're trying to become someone else. You recognize that you are the kind of person who follows through. You are the kind of person who improves. You are the kind of person who grows. Those small wins didn't just build your confidence, they revealed who you were the entire time. If you really want to rewire that critic inside your head, you can't just work on the inner voice. You have to pay attention to the voices around you. Because no matter how strong you think you are, no matter how determined, no matter how focused, you cannot outthink an environment that constantly feeds you negativity. You can't climb when the people around you are pulling you back down. You can't dream big when you're surrounded by small thinking. And you definitely cannot grow when you're marinating in doubt every single day. Your inner world might be the engine, but your outer world is the fuel. And if the fuel is contaminated, the engine struggles to run. People underestimate the power of proximity. They say, I'm fine, I can handle it, not realizing that the human brain absorbs energy the same way a sponge absorbs water. You stay around people who complain long enough, you start finding new things to complain about. You sit around people who fear everything, you begin to shrink your own steps, but place yourself around people who expect more from life, people who stretch, who push, who strive, who hunger, and suddenly you feel something inside you waking up. Something that says, maybe I can do more too. You want discipline. Sit with disciplined people. Watch how they move. Pay attention to how they structure their day, how they treat their time like currency. You want faith. Sit with people who pray, who speak life into their dreams, who choose hope even when the odds look impossible. You want ambition. Sit with the ones who look at limitations like puzzles instead of prison walls. Your environment teaches you without speaking a word. It shapes you quietly, consistently, until you look in the mirror and realize you've become a reflection of the company you kept. I remember hearing a story about a young man who struggled to stay motivated. He kept saying he didn't understand why he always quit halfway through things. Then someone asked him a simple question. Who are you spending the most time with? He listed names, good people, kind people, but every single one of them was stuck, discouraged, or settling. And without realizing it, he had borrowed their energy. He had inherited their limits. The moment he stepped into a new circle, people who challenged him, people who believed in growth, his entire mindset shifted. Not because he changed overnight, but because his environment stopped feeding the voice that held him back. That's the truth. Most people avoid. Your environment is never neutral. It's either nourishing you or poisoning you. It's building your confidence or draining it. It's giving you courage or shrinking your spirit. One positive circle, just one, can drown out 1,000 negative whispers. One room filled with the right energy can give you more power than years of fighting your battles alone. So you have to choose wisely. Choose the voices that lift, that stretch, that sharpen. Choose the rooms where your dreams feel possible. Because when you surround yourself with people who reflect the future you want, not the past you survived, your inner critic doesn't stand a chance. Listen to me, because sometimes you need a voice outside your own to break through the noise inside your head. You are not broken. Even if life has cracked you, bent you, twisted you, even if you've walked through storms so heavy they changed the way you stand, none of that means you're broken. It means you've lived. It means you've survived things you never thought you'd make it through. And surviving does not make you damaged. It makes you seasoned. It makes you stronger in places you once felt weak. You are not late. You are not behind. I don't care what age you are, what chapter you're in, or how far ahead everyone else seems to be. Your timeline is your own. You're moving at the pace your story requires. Flowers don't bloom at the same time, but they all bloom. And you will too. You are not your past. Hear that again. You are not the mistakes you made when you were hurting. You are not the choices you made when you were trying to be loved. You are not the moments when fear spoke louder than your courage. And you are definitely not the opinions spoken over you in seasons when you didn't have the strength to speak up for yourself. People will say things out of ignorance, out of envy, out of their own insecurity. And sometimes those words dig deep, but they don't define you. They don't get to write your name or your destiny. You are a work in progress, beautifully unfinished, deliberately evolving. A story being rewritten with every day you wake up and choose to keep going. A masterpiece under construction. You might not see the finished picture yet, but every chapter, every setback, every comeback is shaping you into something powerful. Don't judge yourself by the pieces when the puzzle isn't complete. The inner critic may speak, but that doesn't mean it gets to decide. That voice might be loud, it might be familiar, it might sound convincing, but it's not the final authority on who you are or who you're becoming. You get the final word you always have, and the final word is this: I am becoming, I am rising, I am rewriting the script. I am choosing the voice that leads me forward, not the one that drags me back. Say it until you believe it. Say it until the old echoes fade. Say it until your spirit stands up straighter. Because every time you speak those words, you reclaim a piece of yourself the world tried to take. Pause. Let that settle in your chest. Now go. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Not when the stars line up or the fear disappears. Go now. Rewire that voice. Reclaim your story. Walk into the future that's been calling your name for years. The life that's been waiting for you is still waiting. Patient, open, possible. All you have to do is step into it.